Hey everyone, so we have kind of a shorter lesson today, kind of just a recap more so than a lesson, but just kind of what we reviewed in the Shema last week, which was the Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. As for you shall love the Lord your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Now we discuss this and what we really use and why this video isn't going to be very long at all. It's because we mostly use the Bible projects teaching on the Shema to inspire discussions about the Shema. Some of the major so if you're looking for what we did really, I would say go to those videos on the Shema, because that was really the majority of the teaching. I kind of took a step back as opposed to last week where it was more me putting in my 2 cents for everything. This was less so that. So I would say go into that. But a few little points I just want to make that were brought up. So the 4 different Gospels have, I believe all 4 of them do have him quoting the Shema. Except maybe John? I think all 4, though, do have it. I'd have to double check on that, but I could be wrong. I believe, though, all 4 do. And there's variation between them. So we spoke on how, why Gospels might have differences in them. Matthew's is a little different, as it's closer to the Shema of Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. While other editions have mind introduced as well. And ma'od is the word there, strength, which we talked a little bit about. First off, Matthew's gospel could have originally been written in Aramaic before Greek, potentially, and Matthew's oftentimes a contender for the earliest account other than Mark. Mark is often cited as the earliest account, as scholarly, but there is a lot of good evidence that Matthew might have been first, or closer to Mark, and Mark would have been earlier. So there's some differences there. But so Matthew has the 3, right? All the other versions have the mind attached to it, right? I believe. So that's interesting, right? Also, I believe it's Luke that that uses the Hear, O Israel line before Jesus speaks, specifically going to the Shema, and then while Mark and say Matthew, and if it is in John, I'd have to look, but I don't believe he uses that specific wording. But they're all of them have this just straight into it. They do not say Hear, O Israel. That might be because of the intent of Luke speaking to maybe Gentiles, to Israel. And let's just look it up real quick too. I believe we could very much get into it. Let me make sure I'm fact checking here. Let me pull up my but we use this as an example of exegesis in the, whether it's here or not. It's a good intro into seeing that there's differences between the gospel accounts that don't necessarily mean that they are contradictions. Anyways, I believe I am correct on that. If you'd like to, if you'd like to correct me in the comments, be sure to. But either way, it doesn't really matter. What the basic point of is that in the Gospels there might be supposed contradictions, and the Shema is a very easy one to look at. It's very, obviously that they're just picking parts of the sentence that they want to use for it. There's no there's really no lying in here. It's just some might say part of it while excluding the other part. It also will depend on the audience, and how it's being translated as well. And so, when Jesus spoke in Aramaic, the Shema was in Hebrew, and then all the Gospels seem to be in Greek, and then we're translating it to English. Not that there are things lost, but it can get interesting how we translate these things out. So it is not a reason to doubt the Scripture, but it is a way to navigate the Scripture, of why sometimes we need to be careful on how we interpret it, because of those differences, right? They do not contradict. They're easily explained oftentimes, but especially with the Shema, very easily. They might include Israel. Some might not include that first part because it's not important to their gospel. Some might use the strength as a way of translating it, but they might add mind because of the word ma'od, which means muchness, and has been translated many different ways. In Greek, it's been translated as strength, power, strength as well, obviously, money, right, mind. So there's these different ways of translating it. And so oftentimes biblical writers have a point they're trying to get across, and especially you find this in the Gospels, where there's the synoptic Gospels, of course, that run very congruently, but they are different, and they're different perspectives on the same events. Again, it's like someone's watching from over here, has a particular way of thinking. This person has a way of thinking, and they're looking from another perspective, and it all comes together to give us a really a whole eyewitness account of Jesus. So that is a huge thing there. Pretty basic stuff, but I thought it was important. And then we discussed the words, obviously. So I would suggest going to those videos. We related it to our prior lesson on the Lord's Prayer of how are we keeping God's name holy. So how are we loving God with all of our everything, essentially, was what the Shema quotes. And something we also talked about, which I think was a huge part of this, is nefesh, right? We discussed the word nefesh, which I think is the most interesting word there. Oftentimes getting translated as soul, which does make a lot of sense, and soul is a good translation there. But sometimes it is meaning something is fully animated or alive. It's the bodily aliveness of something with the soul. So something to take away in Christianity is that it is not just the resurrection of the soul, which is what happens now, right? It is the resurrection of the body as well. Jesus was incarnate. He died. He rose again, right? His body was glorified and raised into heaven, not just his spirit. And so we see that in the final resurrection, right? And so that is our hope as Christians. So oftentimes we think of the physical world as evil, right? But that's just not true. It's more so unfinished and destroyed by sin. So the spiritual world is being redeemed right now, and so then will the physical world be redeemed as well in the kingdom. So that is what we look forward to, and that is what our goal is now, is to redeem the spiritual world and in it redeem the physical. So that is the Shema. I say that I suggest that everyone keeps it in the back of their mind all the time. When they say to in the scripture to pray without ceasing, I think two great prayers to keep in mind is the Lord's Prayer and the Shema. They are both very short, simple, sweet, and very theologically deep. So that is kind of my short video on that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I have the Shema. I keep looking over here because I have the Shema written near my bed from Deuteronomy. So, oh yes, the other thing I think that is the most interesting is the listening and obeying. So how are we listening to God? And that doesn't mean just hearing his stuff or agreeing with him, and how are we acting it out? And St. John the Beloved talks about a lot of that in his Gospels, which we referred to a little bit. I'd like to get into that more in the future. But he mentions the Shema and to love thy neighbor as thyself. Jesus making mention that those are the two greatest commandments, the Shema and love thy neighbor. And John makes mention of that being, I believe, there's the will of God, but then the commandments of God, of Jesus specifically, is to the Shema and to love thy neighbor. So it's pretty important. How are you feeling? How are you living out the Shema in your life? How are you loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength? Heart, soul, mind, and strength is some of the best translation, but again, we can think of it as power or wealth or what have you, which is what we think about in some of the videos in the Bible Project. So again, I really suggest doing that. That's mostly what it is. But again, the I would say the three things to think about are: how are we listening to God and obeying him? How are we loving God with our heart, soul, strength, mind, everything like that? But I would also say, think about the kingdom. Think about how the physical world is not supposed to be evil. It is supposed to be good. And think about how we are taking part in the second coming of Christ, which is to redeem the fullness of the kingdom, to redeem the physical world as well. So that's pretty important. Also, just in regards to how Genesis works, how the final resurrection works, things like that is a very interesting rabbit hole. But yeah, all in all, sorry this is a little disjointed. It was kind of unplanned. I just hadn't made the video, and I was debating on whether I should or not, because most of the lesson was just us going over the Bible projects, short videos, and discussing. But this is kind of the beef of what came out of the discussions. So yeah, this is a very kind of short video, and a little disjointed because I just wanted to get it out there so we had something. But yeah, it's kind of that's what we got. That's what we got this week. So sorry, it's not a bit more. It's not a bit more. It's a little disjointed, but that's what I got this week. So anyways, God bless. Hope you all are doing well. Thank you for watching. Yeah.